Republicans currently have 51 Senate seats, with Dean Heller's race in Nevada almost certainly Democrats' best chance to pick one up, and the flex seat in Arizona coming second. The race could thus very literally be the pivot point on which control of the Senate and thus Trump's ability to continue stoking the judiciary with Republicans, again, judges and the courts. Hinges though, of course, to pull it off, Democrats need to defend a lot of incumbent Democrats in red states. More broadly, Arizona is at the center of the shifting sands of American politics. In the face of a large and growing Latino population, the state's Republican Party appears to be shifting away from the Flake McCain tradition of immigrant-friendly republicanism and towards the appeal Trump brand of white grievance politics. It's not speculation for now. It's all speculation for now, of course. No one is hoping McCain will have to step down or anything else. But the terrain of the 2018 midterm could soon change very quickly. McCain passed, man. Like, so this is all coming out. Now you see what I'm saying, black and brown together, right? Because like he says, in the face of a large and growing Latino population, like, it has to be done hand in hand, man. Speaking of Christine Cinema, right? I'm sorry, Miss Christine, if I'm pronouncing your last name wrong. Forgive me, ma'am. I'm trying. I'm trying here. It has been 90 hours, 94, 95 hours so far. You know what I mean? I am closer to the end. I'm gonna end up doing 108 hours, 100 episodes, 108 hours, and the 108 is representative of Chicago Cubs fans, Illinois voters, the states that Barack Obama represents. It took 108 years for the Cubs to win a World Series after their last one. And the 108 years culminated in the election that same year, that same week that man was elected, of America's most misogynistic, racist, xenophobic, bigoted leader. You know what I mean? Like, in the spirit of that championship, in the spirit of you remembering that win from 2016, go vote Democratic, please, man. Like, I'm begging ya. Like, just, I cannot beg enough, you know what I mean? But I digress, though. If I'm pronouncing your name wrong, man, my apologies. New recording of cinema implying Arizona produces, quote, crazy, by Nicholas Riccardi and Bob Christie, October 11th of 2018, and it's on apnews.com. It goes on to say, Phoenix, Republican activists on Thursday released a video of Representative Christine Sinema, a centrist Democrat, now running for an open Arizona U.S. Senate seat, McCain seat, advising liberal activists how to, quote, stop your state from becoming like Arizona. She was referring, like what she was referring to was stopping the state from becoming what Trump wants the state and every other state to become. That's what she was talking about, but Republicans are going to use it in a different way now that she's running for that Senate seat. You know what I mean? So, like, just pay attention now, just pay attention. The surreptitious recording dates from 2011, after Arizona Republicans had passed Senate Bill 1070, a controversial immigration law that led to nationwide boycotts and concern even among some Arizona Republicans that the legislature had moved too far right or too far racist. Those concerns led to a recall against the then Senate President Russell Pierce, whom Sinema blamed in her remarks for much of the discord. But the talk also contained unusually partisan language from a candidate who is one of the more bipartisan votes in the Congress and who has fashioned herself as a nonpartisan problem solver in the current Senate campaign. In the speech, Sinema of Tucson also noted that school children are taught 5 C's that represent Arizona and suggested adding a 6th, crazy. She was frustrated that no one in the state's legislature was standing up to out-of-date special interests working to take away health care from children making tuition more expensive and taking job security away from working families. Cinema spokeswoman Helen, Helen Hare said in a statement Tuesday, Christian was born here and will always stand up to outside special interest groups to protect and defend Arizonans, like McCain did his whole career as a Titan of the Senate. The last remaining Titans, no more Titans of the Senate. Cinema's transformation from a one-time Green Party activist to a moderate congresswoman has already drawn scorn from her Republican rival, Representative Martha McSally. On Thursday, McSally erupted in frustration at the press availability following a roundtable like Brett Kavanaugh came out in frustration. What's up with all these racist pigs whenever they're being called out on their bullshit? Always want to come out forceful and in frustration. That's why Obama beat Mitt Romney at their own racist game in the 2012 debates. Everybody was expecting Mitt Romney to attack Obama and Obama to come back. Obama like, man, I'm gonna show you how it's done. I'm a black man American. I'm expected to be violent, even at this level. Even at the presidential level, I'm expected to be violent and ignorant. I'm not gonna give you the pleasure of that. My man was calm. He took the shots. He took the shots. And he had to come back. He had to come back. Mitt did not know what hit him. What up, Mitt? Catching any balls lately? You gotta love words, yo. Gotta love words. On Thursday, McSally erupted in frustration at the press availability following a roundtable with business leaders and Governor Doug Ducey, also a Republican. Calling Arizonans crazy and having particular disdain for Republicans when she wants Republicans to vote for her is unbelievable, McSally told reporters. And Arizonans need to know about it. McSally, Arizonans are smarter than that. They know you full of shit. Get the fuck out of here. Like I said earlier, man, I'm never gonna cuss a woman out of her name. I have always utmost respect for women, but at the same time, though, we have a lot of women in this country who still think that these men are making right decisions. Fuck out of here with that bullshit, man. Ain't nobody trying to hear that. Cinema has maintained a small but consistent public polling lead in the race, partly by appealing to conservative-leaning independents and moderate Republicans. Be good-hearted Republicans, please, please. You gotta realize now that your party, if you are conservative-leaning independent and moderate Republican, please join the Democratic Party so you can install some kind of fiscal conservatism within the Democratic Party and give it some backbone. And then take the good part of what it means to be Lincoln's Republican Party, which was against slavery and the keeping down of the black man, and add it with the Democratic ideal. Like, it's not a bad thing. Like, if Trump really wanted to make the necessary cleanup that he was spouting, like, I'm not gonna go there with him because I know he was full of shit. He was just saying the shit that he know that he needed to say for people to tap into the white lash that he had noticed when Obama became president. I get it. He's an opportunistic racist pig. I get it. You know what I mean? But still, like, don't don't let them get away with it, man. As an American, it's incumbent upon you to come forward and cast a ballot against everything they're against. Like Dr. Christine Blasey Ford felt like it was incumbent upon her. I felt all that. I feel all that. Because if she hadn't have done that, if this man would have quietly been nominated without no controversy, she probably could never live with herself. But right now, she good. She has faced it. She has dealt with it. She has put it out there. Like, it's not a secret anymore. She has taken her power back. Whatever power he took from her that day when he held his hand over her mouth and tried to literally force himself upon her, that power he took from her 30 some years ago, 36 years ago, she finally took it back. That's the life of that woman who became a successful psychologist eventually. Went through years of therapy. Probably still going through therapy, yes. But that power is important. She's taking it back. Like Nina Simone said, power! But cinema has maintained a small but consistent public polling lead in the race, partly by appealing to conservative-leaning independents and moderate Republicans. The GOP has worked hard to break their grip. Recent attacks include pictures of cinema in a pink tutu at a protest against the Iraq War. They're going back to the Iraq War. Y'all remember when John McCain was saying about the Iraq War? Like, y'all remember how they was? See, like, it's all these code words, all these little code images. When someone has hate in their heart, it's not hard to convince them of anything. Like when someone has hate in their heart, it's not hard to convince them. Like I have hate for white supremacy in my heart. I don't have hate for white people now. If up to this point you think I do, I'm sorry. I don't know who the fuck you've been listening to. Or have you been understanding the words that are coming out of my mouth? Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? If you haven't, I'm sorry, but I hate white supremacy. I hate white privilege. I hate white power. It has kept the world down for too fucking long. It has kept my kind down for too fucking long. You know what I mean? So I hope, like, yeah, you know what I mean? When I have hate for white supremacy in my heart, when I see something, when somebody of color makes something that points out the white supremacy, the white privilege aspects of that something that I'm seeing, it's not hard to convince me. Because I know it in my heart, because I have that animosity for it in my heart. And 62 million white racists went and voted for this idiot based on that same racial xenophobic thinking, that same bigoted thinking, that same white supremacist thinking. They did. It's no ifs, ands, and buts about that. You know what I mean? We're gonna get to a study that just came out this week that's actually admitted that something people like myself been known since 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, these studies are gonna come out eventually, but at the same time though, it takes time for studies to be done. It takes time for people to realize that's life. Nelson Mandela said something interesting, right? He said, damn, where is this line at? Where the hell is this line at? I'm eventually gonna get to when I get to this chapter, right? But let's see, where is it at? As so often happens in life, the momentousness of an occasion is lost in the welter of 1,000 details. Yo, what the fucking line? As so often happens in life, the momentousness of an occasion is lost in the welter of 1,000 details. No, but I digress. Recent attacks include pictures of cinema in a pink tutu at a protest against the Iraq War. Allegations that cinema, a former rape crisis counselor, was soft on child molestation, and a mailer that portrayed a mushroom cloud over Phoenix if the Democrat is elected. The video was released by the Reagan Battalion, an anonymous conservative group, no, an anonymous Republican group on Twitter. You know what? Yeah, I gotta write their name down. Believe it or not, when I'm done with this, I'm gonna share this with every source, every news source. I'm literally gonna send them emails. I'm gonna send them links for all this shit. I'm gonna send them links like, this is my first time hearing about the Reagan Battalion, but I'm gonna send them a little preview. I'm gonna forward them a video. Maybe they might use some of my whatchamacallit, my bloviating to try to get white people mad at this black man with Obama's face in the background, so they can go out and vote against everything. But they're failing to realize that what you failing to realize that those white people are seeing what I'm seeing. You know what I mean? I'm just saying they know I'm not calling them out on this shit. I'm just calling out a system that has benefited them. You know what I mean? The Reagan Battalion. We're gonna get to that later. We're gonna deal with that later. It shows Cinema, who's bisexual, addressing a group beneath a banner for the Texas Stonewall Democrats, a Democratic LGBT group in that state. She opens by noting that people had been calling Arizona crazy recently and blames it on the GOP. There is something wrong with the people in public office in Arizona, Cinema said in the ad. People are saying the Tea Party, the Tea Party. These people have been in charge 20 years in Arizona. They call Republicans. She spun what to Democrats is a familiar story, that Pierce was carrying hardline immigration bills and other conservative legislation on abortion and health care at the behest of racist anti-immigration groups and a corporate-backed Republican organization that writes model legislation for state lawmakers. They do though. Alec. Samantha Bee did an episode on them, and I think John Oliver referenced them. But Samantha Bee did an awesome piece on them. They're called ALEC, A-L-E-C. Just Google, don't say it to Google, type it out, A-L-E-C, and model legislation, and the Republican. See what comes up. And she gave what turns out to be a precinct. YouTube assuming I'm not listening anymore. And she gave what turns out to be a prescient warning to Texas liberals who have since watched the GOP gain in their state legislature and pass increasingly hardline immigration laws. Why it's important to think about what's happening in Arizona, Cinema said, is simply because that's what's coming to your state next. She ain't lie about that. Ooh, this is interesting, right? This is just a little side note. Like I said, man, like I read through a bunch of shit. You're probably wondering why I read through half of this shit. This is from Quartz.com, Q-A-R-T-Z, or just QZ.com. It's titled Cracking Up. It's by Lucia Perez Diaz, and this was published on April the 4th of 2018, the day 50 years after Dr. King was killed. It says geologists now have evidence Africa is physically splitting into two continents. A large crack stretching like, yo, the crack is right there by the eastern coast of Ireland, by the eastern side of Africa, by around like Ethiopia and Somalia. Like, I'm not, you know what? Let me just read and find out. My bad. I'm getting ahead of myself. A large crack stretching several kilometers made a sudden appearance recently in southwestern Kenya. The tear, which continues to grow, caused parts of the Nairobi Narok Highway to collapse and was accompanied by seismic activity in the area. The Earth is an ever-changing planet, even though in some respects change might be almost unnoticeable to us. Plate tectonics is a good example of this, but every now and again something dramatic happens and leads to a renewed question about the African continent splitting into two. The Earth's lithosphere, created by the crust in the upper part of the mantle, is broken up into a number of tectonic plates. These plates are not static, but move relative to each other at varying speeds, gliding over a viscous asthenosphere. Good word. Exactly what mechanism or mechanisms are behind their movement is still debated, but are likely to include convection currents within the asthenosphere and the forces generated at the boundaries between plates. These forces do not simply move the plates around. They can also cause plates to rupture, forming a rift and potentially leading to the creation of new plate boundaries. The East Africa Rift System is an example of where this is currently happening. The East Africa Rift Valley stretches some 3,000 kilometers from the Gulf of Aden in the north towards Zimbabwe in the south, splitting the African plate into two unequal parts, the Somali and Nubian plates. Activity along the eastern branch of the Rift Valley, running along Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania, became evident when a large crack suddenly appeared in southwestern Kenya. Why does rifting happen? When the lithosphere is subject to horizontal extension of force, it will stretch, becoming thinner. Eventually, it will rupture, leading to the formation of a rift valley. Wow, it has a picture. If you're looking at this article, it has a picture of the Great Rift Valley in Tanzania. Yo, you can clearly see it's almost like that movie Day After Tomorrow, or no, was it Memorial Day or San Andreas? It's like he has a crack right in the middle of the valley. Yeah? This process is accompanied by surface manifestations along the Rift Valley in the form of volcanism and seismic activity. Rifts are the initial stages of a continental breakup, and if successful, can lead to formation of a new ocean basin. As example of a place on Earth where this has happened is the South Atlantic Ocean, which which resulted from the breakup of South America and Africa around 135 million years ago. For all those black and brown people out here who are thinking that we're not connected by one history, you're sadly mistaken. Brazil has the largest population of people of African descent outside of Africa. That means that Brazil has more people that can be identified as black outside of Africa, more than America. Like I said, man, black in America makes up about 15 million. We're a minority in America, but worldwide, even the Chinese ain't fucking with us, yeah? They're not. Like everybody know, that's why the Chinese is literally raping Africa right now. The Chinese is trying to get into Africa how the white man got into Africa in the 17th, 15, 16, 17, 1800s. So, an example of a place on Earth where this has happened is the South Atlantic Ocean, which resulted from the breakup of South America and Africa some 138 million years ago. Ever notice how their coastlines match like pieces of the same puzzle? Yo, I ain't gonna lie. Family Guy did this little funny ass racist little cutaway one time where they show this thing. Well, when I say they show this thing in exact, they show the South Americans running away from Africa before, splitting up with Africa before that the white man got there, some shit. If you've seen as many episodes of Family Guy as I have, you know the skit I'm talking about. That shit was so on point though. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Continental rifting requires the existence of extensional forces great enough to break the lithosphere. The East African rift is described as an active type of rift in which the source of these stresses lie in the circulation of the underlying mantle. Beneath this rift, the rise of a large mantle plumb is dooming the lithosphere upwards, causing it to weaken as a result of increasing temperature, undergo stretching and breaking by faulting. Evidence for the existence of this harder than normal mantle plumb has been found in geophysical data and is often referred to as a quote Africa's super swell. This super plumb is not only a widely accepted source of the pull apart forces that have resulted in the formation of the Rift Valley, but has also been used to explain the, the anomalously high topography of the southern and eastern African plateaus. Yo, I had a cousin one time. What up, cousin? I had a cousin one time who was taking an oceanography class for extra credit. Her expertise could come in handy later on down the road in the progress for Africa. Hey, Big Top, what's up, man? 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 Hey, Brian, you still think it's the Rothschilds and all that stuff that's making decisions about the war? I'm talking to my cousin's husband, right? But I say this man is a conspiracy theorist to the whew, but his conspiracies are a lot more outdated than mine. But I hate to say, hey, Ibrahim, don't be mad at me, but I hate to say it, man, but my conspiracy is a lot more based on facts than yours are, but every conspiracy theory says that, you know what I mean? But I digress though. I, I'm feeling gadflies right now, even though I shouldn't be. I grew up with the child sound. Alright, where you at, Miles? Where you at, Miles? Where you at? Where you at, Miles? Where you at? Where you hiding at? Where you hiding at, Mouse? Let's go, Mouse. Let's go, Mouse. Let's bring it home with the stylings of Miles Davis. You know what I mean? Let's bring it home with that, with this one. Breaking up isn't easy. Rifts exhibit a very distinctive topography characterized by a series of fault-bounded depressions surrounded by higher terrain. In the East African system, a series of aligned rift valleys separated from each other by large bounding faults can be clearly seen from space. You trying to tell me if something like this was happening in North America or Europe, we wouldn't have heard about it? Something would have been done you know what I mean? I'm trying to tell y'all, man. Not all of these fractures formed at the same time, but followed a sequence starting in the Afar region in northern Ethiopia at around 30 million years ago, and propagating southward towards Zimbabwe at a mean rate of between 2.5 to 5 centimeters a year. Although most of the time rifting is unnoticeable to us, the formation of new faults, fissures and cracks or renewed movements along old faults as the Nubian and Somali plates continue moving apart can result in earthquakes. However, in East Africa, most of this seismicity is spread over a wide zone across the Rift Valley and is of relatively small magnitude. Volcanism running alongside is a further surface manifestation of the ongoing process of continental breakup and proximity of the hot molten asthenosphere to the surface. A timeline in action. The East African rift is unique in that it allows us to observe different stages of rifting along its length. Yo, they got an awesome ass video like you should check out, yo. Yo, the natural wonders of the Almighty, yo. To the south, where the rift is young, extension rates are low and faulting occurs over a wide area. Volcanism and seismicity are limited. Yo, it's a big ass gap that's like 50 feet wide, yo. That's, yo. Yeah, I got to check this out. It's on quartz.com, QZ.com, and it's titled Scientists Now Have Evidence Africa is Physically Splitting into Two Continents. To the south, where the rift is young, extension rates are low and faulting occurs over a wide area. Volcanism and seismicity are limited. Towards the Afar region, however, the entire Rift Valley floor is covered with volcanic rocks. This suggests that in this area, the lithosphere was thinned almost to the point of complete breakup. When this happens, a new ocean will begin forming by the solidification of magma in the space created by the broken up plates. Eventually, over a period of tens of millions of years, seafloor spreading will progress along the entire length of the rift. The ocean will flood in, and as a result, the African continent will become smaller, and there will be a large island in the Indian Ocean comprised of parts of Somalia and Ethiopia, including the Horn of Africa. Dramatic events such as sudden motorway splitting faults or large catastrophic earthquakes may give continental rifting a sense of urgency, but most of the time it goes about splitting Africa without anybody even noticing. Lucia Perez Diaz, postdoctoral researcher, Fault Dynamic Research Group, Royal Holloway. This article was originally published on The Conversation. That is wow. Natural phenomena into a handicap and a curse. Men project their unconscious wishes upon the screen of their society and make their their institutions and their gods in the images of their desires. Their envy of women's physiological powers causes them to feel weak and inferior, and fear is often added to jealousy. An effective way for men to protect themselves against women as well as to punish them is to depreciate their capacities by depreciating their status. One can deny the virtues of women's advantages by treating them as disadvantages, but by investing them with mysterious or dangerous properties. By making women objects of fear and something to be avoided as unclean, one can lower the cultural status of women on the basis of their biological advantages. The biological advantages, however, must first be demoted to the status of cultural disadvantages, and as cultural disadvantages, they must then be converted into biological disadvantages. Get it? Good. Once this is achieved, there need be no end to the belief in the cultural and biological disadvantages of these traits. It is not here being suggested that this sort of thinking goes on, except occasionally on the conscious level. The suggestion is that it does occur on the unconscious level, a suggestion for which there is a very great deal of evidence, mainly as an anthropological and psychoanalytic nature, of the kind which has already been mentioned. From an early age, females are conditioned to believe that menstruation is a cause and a handicap. Pregnancy, they have been taught, puts them in a precarious condition, while childbirth has been surrounded with so many myths and mysteries and dangers that most women in the Western world have until recently really approach and experience the event without foreboding and anxiety. And this holds true for the sympathetic husband too. We have fallen we have fallen here through our social heredity and our traditions to a set of beliefs concerning the biological disadvantages of females. We have already seen what some of the origins of these beliefs may have been and why in part they still continue to be maintained. These beliefs are almost wholly unsound. We know today that menstruation is neither mysterious nor malignant, but a perfectly healthy normal function of women. Pregnancy need be neither precarious nor handicapping, nor, nor need childbirth or childbearing. If women have been led to believe that these functions are handicapping, that they must therefore play second fiddle to the male of the species, both women and men perhaps may now better understand how this belief came into being, and perhaps endeavor to make the functions of women something closer to a realization of the great privileges which they are. But this is a theme which we shall take up in a later and more appropriate place. For the present, let us return to a consideration of the manner in which certain of the other alleged disabilities of women came into being. Owing to the enlarging experience which fall to the male in consequence of his role as a hunter and maker of implements, he developed certain highly valued traits and skills. These are a broad experience and varied knowledge of an environment larger than that which the female experiences, the increase in acquired intelligence which such experience and knowledge brings, and the ability to make things which the female is not called upon to make, especially hunting implements. It will readily be seen that such traits immediately give their possessor an advantage over the non-possessor. It will also be readily understood why it is that men, under such conditions, consider women their inferiors and themselves incomparably more important. For while it is woman's work to concern herself with the preservation of the individual, men are concerned with no less than the perpetuation of the race. Were it not for the basic support which men provide for the family, so they consider, the rest will die out. In spite of the fact that this is and has always been a highly questionable proposition, such nevertheless has always been the opinion of the quote head of the family. It is an open question whether the real holder together and support of the family is the psychological, if not exclusively in the material sense, has not always been the wife and mother. However that may be, he who pays the piper calls the tune, and the head of the family has always demanded the respect due to a superior person, and he has received it, but always at the cost of making all other members of the family feel inferior. And indeed, by comparison, everyone else in the family was inferior, for the wife possessed no such skill as her husband, nor was she anywhere nearly as intelligent about so many of the things which her husband had experienced, but which she had never known. Furthermore, he was bigger and stronger than she. The children, of course, were even more inferior than their mother was to their father, but it is important to note that they grow up having no doubt of the mother's inferiority to their father. Thus, everyone, including mother, will be convinced that father was a superior person and that mother was at best a mere second-rater. Everyone drew the erroneous conclusion from the cultural fact that these differences of superiority, of inferiority were biologically determined. Women, it was assumed, were naturally inferior to men, and that was that. And in reality, to the present day, women have remained inferior to men practically everywhere in the world for much the same reason that they were at the dawn of human history, first discovered to be inferior. This is a quote now. They were practically never given equal opportunity with men to develop their capabilities. The opportunities for the development of their intelligence and tribal skills was severely restricted by what was traditionally considered permissible to women. They were prejudged rather than fairly judged, and they were condemned to a servitude from which they could never emerge unless granted the opportunity to do so. In the 1840s, a writer in Goody's Lady's book put it very plainly, quote, "As a general hint, there was such wisdom in the advice given by an old mother to a young one. Stimulate the sensibilities of your boys and blunt those of your girls. Depressing advice, but well adapted to the realities of the time." Charlotte Bronte's friend Mary Taylor wrote in 1845, before the Civil War, There are no means for a woman to live in England but by teaching, sewing, or washing. The last is the best paid and the least unhealthy and the most free. Feelings of weakness and inferiority have their roots in other than purely cultural factors. It is a matter of fact that men are usually bigger and more powerful than women. Being bigger and more powerful generally makes the bigger and more powerful person feel and act in a big and powerful manner. In the presence of such persons, the smaller and less powerful are likely to feel dwarfed. At any rate, where the sexes are concerned, the factors of size and power added to other prerogatives and statuses puts the male decidedly in the position of dominance. Women have been so long conditioned in the environment of masculine dominance that they have come to expect the male to be dominant and the female subservient. The, psycho- the psychological subservience of the female has assumed innumerable ramifications in almost all human society and constitutes yet another illustration of the effects of the cultural differentiations of the sexes. Now, this paragraph that I'm about to read is very crucial. Yo. I had to bookmark this. I had to literally put brackets over and bookmark the page so I can point it out. So it reads, it is a general rule throughout the animal kingdom that wherever one sex is larger or physically more powerful than the other, the larger or physically more powerful sex will occupy the position of dominance. Man, we know, is something more than an animal, but not all men have quite realized their facts. We are all pieces of shit. If you ain't realize that yet, that means you have no respect for women. And you cannot spell manners, M-A-N-N-E-R-S, without spelling man, M-A-N. Man, we know, is sometimes more than an animal, but not all men have quite realized their fact. If, as Plato said, civilization is the victory of persuasion over force, it may be that men may yet be persuaded to consider some of the origins of their sexual dominance, and even to learn that the force of argument is eventually stronger and more beneficial in its effects than the argument of force. I told you that was an awesome ass paragraph, yo. The force of argument is eventually stronger and more beneficial in its effects than the argument of force. With less male representation all over the world, we will have less violence and less wars. It will be a lot more peaceful society. That is a fact. That is no ifs, ands, and buts about that. And look at what's happening in Germany. I'm just saying, man. Miss Merkel, again. Good job, man. No man could have done what you've done. That's a fact. Oh yeah, hype Hitler, German neo-Nazis out there right now, man. Y'all can kiss my light-skinned African ass on your way the fuck to hell for it. I give a fuck about what you got to say about that. I'm just saying, man. It has already been pointed out that there is a remarkable parallel between the phenomena of race prejudice and the prejudice against women. Everything, for example, that has been said about almost any alleged inferior race has been said about women. We have already heard that their brains are smaller, that their intelligence is low, that they are not very good at arithmetic, that one can't trust them to govern their own affairs, that they are like children, emotional, unoriginal, uncreative, unintellectual, with a severely limited attention span, and so on, through the whole dreary calendar. These are the familiar arguments of the racist, the stock in trade of the racially prejudiced, and every one of them has been argued as a fact against the Negro as well as against women in general. I hope that no reader of this book is naive enough to imagine that proof of the erroneousness of these beliefs could be sufficient to eliminate either race prejudice or the prejudice against women. I'm gonna say that again. I hope that no reader of this book is naive enough to imagine that the proof of the erroneousness of these beliefs will be sufficient to eliminate either race prejudice or the prejudice against women. For just as the race problem is not really a race problem at all, but a problem in human relations. So the prejudice against women is not simply a matter of anti-feminism or whatnot, but also a problem in human relations. And that problem in human relations was created by men, and it's been fucked up by men, and it can only be solved by women and men who believe they are women and not inferior to us, but they're more superior than us. That is a fact. If you came out of a woman and you don't believe that, now you should have stayed in. I'm sorry. Your pops should have wore rubber. Thanks, Exhibit. I'm gonna read that one again. That was an awesome piece. I hope that no reader of this book is naive enough to imagine that proof of the erroneousness of these beliefs will be sufficient to eliminate either race prejudice or the prejudice against women. For just as the race problem is not really a race problem at all but a problem in human relations, so the prejudice against women is not a simple matter of anti-feminism or whatnot, but also a problem in human relations. Until we solve the human relations problems, we shall solve neither these nor any other difficulties of human beings. It is part of the purpose of this book to show how this problem may be solved. Man is himself a problem in search of a solution, and his prejudices against minority groups and women constitute a social minority group, if not a numerical one, are groping expressions of his confused attempt to solve his problem. This next line is just great, yo. As you can tell, every line that I come to is great. That's the beauty of reading. It opens up your mind. It makes you think in a way that you normally is not going to think unless you open that book. If you don't believe me, pick up a book and start reading every day. So in a month's time, you will see, you will start thinking differently. You will start thinking a little better, a little clearer, with a little bit more open-mindedness and an open heart to go along with it. When men understand that the best way to solve their own problem is to help women solve those which men have created for women, they will have taken one of the first significant steps towards its solution. To the pit of misery, dilly dilly, fuck you dumb truck. When men understand that the best way to solve their own problem is to help women solve those which men have created for women, they will have taken one of the first significant steps towards its solution. And what is woman's greatest problem? Man. For man has created and maintained her principal difficulties, and until man solves his own difficulties, there can be no wholly satisfactory solution of woman's. Once again, it is like the Negro's problem, which is the white man. Once again, it is like the Negro's problem, which is the white man. Until the white man solves his personal difficulties, the Negro will continue to afford a convenient scapegoat. They're still making America's first black president into a scapegoat for everything they want to supposedly accomplish as part of their agenda, because that man made America less great, even though he made it greater than it was when he took over. Yeah. I digress, though, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it is like the Negro's problem, which is the white man. Until the white man solves his personal difficulties, the Negro will continue to afford a convenient scapegoat. These difficulties in human relations are not simply problems in the communication of facts. You don't kill a person suffering from delusions by telling him that he is playing tricks with reality, and that the facts are other than he asserts them to be. Deep and complex psychological conditions are involved. We must make the patient aware of them before we can hope for any possibility of a cure. Prevention is so much better than cure, so painless and so much less costly. In the service of the good health, I gotta speak on that. Prevention is so much better than cure, so painless and so much less costly. You know how we can prevent white racism to continue to exploit the life of black and brown people in America? Go out and vote every year. And I mean every calendar year. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in jail, a total of 10,000 days. Instead of 50 every year, when you hear there's an election, when you see a campaign, because if you turn your TV, if you turn your radio, if you get on your phone anywhere, when it's election time, you're going to see ads. As soon as you see ads, just go vote for anybody that's not a Republican. For the next 27 years, the next 50 years, the next 100 years. Chase those crazy ballheads out of the town. Get them the fuck out of American politics. George Washington said it best. He said the two-party system is going to ruin America. And he was right. Because it's always going to be, he knew it's always going to be that one party that's always going to want to keep things backwards. And it's been proven, it's been shown, just by the simple fact that Trump used the Republican Party base as his platform on his prejudiced, bigoted, xenophobic, racist, rapist rants towards the White House. It's proof enough in the Trumpian orange pudding that they need to be disbanded. Don't believe me, just watch. I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying. But prevention is so much better than cure, so painless and so much less costly. In the service of the good health of our society, that is the worth. In the service of the good health of our society, that it is worth hanging a big question mark on some of the things we must take for granted. We take most for granted. I'm going to skip chapter 3. I'm not going to skip the whole of chapter 3, but there was some parts in there that I liked, that I have bookmarked. Let's see if I can see that one. Okay, right here. On page 54, it says, even Sigmund Freud, the genius in the study of human nature, was badly deceived upon this point, for he mistook the great cultural emphasis placed by our species upon sex as a biologically motivated function. On the contrary, our emphasis on sex is one of the unfortunate social consequences of the inferior position in which women have been placed by men. And it goes on to say on the same page, socially, sex has become almost a pathological growth. Its beauty and true meaning have largely become perverted and deformed to degrading ends and purposes. The true significance of love and sex has become declouded to such an extent that few people in our culture really understand what it is. Sex is equated with intercourse as a final end, and love is confused with the same thing. Love for far too many men in our time consists of sleeping with a seductive woman, one who is properly endowed with the right distribution of curves and conveniences, and one upon whom a permanent lien has been acquired through the institution of marriage. See, that is jacked up. Like, that is some jacked up mentality right there. And you see that every day. Like, I grew up around that, being from Africa, like literally. Even my daughter's mom has that understanding about that. About having that inferior position, that subservient position towards me, towards who her man is or who her man was, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, it's a societal thing. So listen, on page 55 it goes, so listen to men dilating learnedly on the subject of women is to suffer a positive increase in one's ignorance. If you don't understand that line, Cole, you stupid. On page 58 to 59, he wrote, In the civilized world of today's In the civilized world of today, we do somewhat better than our ancestors, though the emotional response of men to the adultery of their wives tend to be so overwhelmingly great that one cannot help suspecting that the same ancient motives, at least in part, play a significant role in shaping their reactions. Okay, let me leave Ashley Montague for a second. Let me go to Vox.com, has the study. Vox.com, this is from yesterday, October the 16th of 2018. And it is by Zach Beauchamp. It says a new study reveals the real reason Obama voters switched to Trump, like the Matt Damons and the Clint Eastwoods and the everyone else who went out and said they voted for Obama, but then they didn't like what he was doing. Again, the title says a new study reveals the real reason Obama voters switched to Trump. Hint: it has to do with race. Duh. Yeah, just catching up to what 97% of black Americans knew already. You know what I mean? The rest of white Americans finally admitting to some shit. One of the most puzzling elements of the 2016 election, at least for a lot of Americans, was the millions of voters who switched from voting for Barack Obama in 2012 to Donald Trump in 2016. Somewhere between 6.7 million and 9.2 million Americans switched this way. Yo. Imagine if 14 million black Americans did not sit on their collective asses and went out and vote. Yes, I just said imagine if 14 or 15 million African Americans did not sit on their collective asses and went out and vote. Especially in those red states. But it was meant to happen how it happened. You know what I mean? Russia was meant to help Trump steal an election in America. Trump was meant to say Mexicans are rapists and murderers and we're going to build a wall because America's first black president was not making America great. So he was going to come make America great again. You know what I mean? Somewhere between 6.7 million and 9.2 million Americans switched this way. Given that the 2016 election was decided